This show is for informational purposes only. In view of the complex nature of health and disease, it is only recommended that you change your current treatments or healthcare practice with the direct assistance of a health professional. You can contact Dr. Dale if you desire to achieve true health. Call his office at 931-591-2010.
I got a question online via Facebook. So again, you can email me at drdalebrown@gmail.com. You can definitely get a hold of me through Facebook, at the Wild Doc Facebook page. You can message us there, ask your questions. Got a question from Darlene, and that will be, this entire show will be surrounded or based around answering her question. She had a specific question about Zoloft. I want to read her whole message. Darlene says, love your stream tonight. Definitely going to tune in from now on. I take Zoloft, 100 milligrams daily, but I'm worried about it going into my breast milk and into my baby. So she's breastfeeding, and she's worried about Zoloft and the effects on her child. I first want to say, Darlene, awesome. Always want to applaud you, or any mother, for just the sacrifices that you do on a daily basis for you, your family, your children, and awesome work in breastfeeding, providing the most nutritious food you can possibly, and in the most natural way to feed your child. And again, always wanting to know that people out there that have struggled with breastfeeding, there are natural means, there are wilderness remedies, there are natural herbs. In fact, even one, they talked about the use of wild lettuce and just the milky sap that comes from that. It was thought to improve lactation, and been studied for that. I'll give you a little tips on that, on how to use it, even in providing anxiety relief and improving mood, decreasing pain, as well as improving sleep. And those are things that often affect somebody who is suffering with depression or anxiety, and it looks like Darlene as well. So, is there anything you recommend? Yes, we'll get to that. My doctor said it's safe to take while breastfeeding, but I don't feel very comfortable with it. The doctor cannot say it's safe because there's not a lot of literature out there on any type of study looking at. There's case studies into harms, psychological conditions that occur in children more likely if they were exposed to such psychotropic medications, Zoloft, Paxil, and other selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and other various depression medications. So there's a lot of literature on the negative effects of prenatal exposure, and we'll be talking about some of those, but rest assured, healing can be achieved if there has been exposure there. But I definitely want to encourage you to seek out the underlying causes of depression and what we can do to correct the cause of any health condition. If you learn or get to know me, you understand that I'm an advocate for understanding what causes a health condition in the first place. We have to identify it. Many times, even supplements, even natural oils, different things like that, we're using those as drugs or medicine, and yet we're not really getting to the root causes. So there are many different causes of depression, and we need to focus on all those different causes and figure out, is this person suffering with depression because they have spinal misalignments? Is it because their body is way too inflamed? Is it because they have leaky gut and an inflamed digestive tract? Do they have celiac disease? Do they have gluten intolerances? Are they having allergic reactions to the foods they eat? Are they egg or dairy? A lot of literature shows that gut inflammation, digestive system inflammation, causes or contributes to depression. So removing inflammation in the digestive tract is a critical step in the right direction to relieving the symptoms or pain of depression and getting the root causes again. You got to look at all facets of health and correct those to get healthy. She says, at the same time, I need the medication to get sleep, not have bad anxiety during the day. Would love to hear what you think. So Darlene, thank you for your question, and I look forward to discussing this topic. And as always, I will be discussing multiple aspects of this topic, not just saying, here, go take this and eat this plant. or get that adjustment. We need an understanding of not only the medications that were being recommended. I don't like that a doctor is saying it's safe when he doesn't have the evidence to actually provide you research and evidence to actually say that. So that's sad. The depressing news of antidepressants, the first article I pulled, because it's an eye-opening article. It's Newsweek. It was back in 2010. It's a simple read. But the depressing news about antidepressants, the first thing I want to read from this is right about here, and what they're talking about through this article is that the research behind antidepressants show that they're not truly effective in comparison to placebos. And roughly 40% of research trials go unpublished on antidepressants because they find no benefit or harm. In fact, research on such drugs as Paxil, they were scheduled to take the drug out to 8 weeks in the clinical trials for FDA approval. They changed the study halfway through, or more than halfway through. At 6 weeks, they found that the individuals on Paxil, on the medications, were getting worse. So they were actually having worsening symptoms of depression. And that's why we see so many negative effects in the population of people taking these medications, because the medication downregulates the production of certain types of hormones or serotonin or neurotransmitters. And by that process, it causes an indifference. Indifference is a very dangerous state of mind, because indifference, you could be indifferent about your life, you could be indifferent about other people's lives, and then indifference leads to no emotion whatsoever. So from a symptomatic standpoint, some people think that it's benefiting them because they're not having those highs and lows. They're not going into severe depression. They're just kind of even keel. They're not truly enjoying life, though, either, and that has negative consequences. But the indifference is dangerous because, again, like I said, you can be indifferent about both your life and other people's life. And it's not affecting, and it's not so severe that it's going to affect everybody, but what that causes is then my life doesn't matter, other people's lives don't matter, and that's where you see horrible things take place because of the psychological harms or side effects from these medications. I'm getting a little feedback from my phone here. And Ashley tunes in. Lenny Jane tunes in. Dee. Sarita Andrew, hello, how are we doing? My sister tunes in as well, awesome. Ruth, welcome to the show. So again, ask questions on there. We're going to be detailing out this. And again, I read from the research, the evidence, just to give you an understanding of not just my opinion, where I stand on this, but to raise awareness to what we should be looking at and the ways we need to be actually looking at health. So here we have, people scowl and ask how antidepressants, especially those that raise the brain's level of serotonin, can possibly have no direct chemical effect on the brain. Surely raising serotonin levels should right the synapses, chemical imbalance, and lift depression. Unfortunately, the serotonin deficit theory of depression is built on a foundation of tissue paper. How that came to be in story is a story in itself, but the basics are that in the 1950s, scientists discovered serendipitously that a drug called ipironizid, I can't even pronounce it. Again, I don't know how they come up with drug names is comical. It's like they just slap the keyboard of a computer and whatever comes up, there's your name for your drug. Seemed to help people with some depression symptoms. The medication increases brain levels of serotonin and norepinephrine. Ergo, low levels of those neurotransmitters must cause depression then, they theorized. More than 50 years on, the presumed effectiveness of antidepressants that act this way remains chief support for chemical imbalance theory of depression, absent that effectiveness. I always ask people when they're told by their medical physicians that they have a chemical imbalance in their brain and that's why they have depression. I go, okay, so where's the blood test? Where's your test results? Where's the chemical results that show you that chemical imbalance? There is none. So it's a theory. We have to understand it. Now, there are neurotransmitters, there are hormones that are tied to depression or certain moods and mood regulation. So we'll talk about those. So there may be a quote-unquote imbalance, but it's not just the imbalance, it's what's causing that imbalance, what's lacking in their body, what's causing more cortisol to be cortisol to be elevated. What's causing their sympathetic tone to be higher? That causes a depressed mood, anxiety, because it's a defense mechanism, a safety mechanism for survival. So we have to figure that out. Absent the effectiveness, the theory hasn't a leg to stand on. Direct evidence doesn't exist. Lowering people's serotonin levels does not change their mood. And a new drug, which is sold in France, some in other countries, but not in the United States, turns out to be just as effective as Prozac, like antidepressants, that keep the synapses well supplied with serotonin. The mechanism of the new drug, it lowers brain levels of serotonin if depression can be equally affected by drugs that increase serotonin and by drugs that decrease it. It's hard to imagine how the benefits can be due to their chemical activity. Interesting, isn't that? The fact that one drug that lowers serotonin in the body, in the brain, could be just as effective as another drug that raises serotonin. So when someone says, oh, it's low serotonin levels, we need a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor to raise the serotonin levels in the brain, and that's supposed to cure your depression, but it works just as effective to lower your serotonin levels. But then a placebo works just as well. Interesting. Now, when you say that the placebo works just as well as many, and that's the thing, you have to remember that roughly 40% of the clinical studies on antidepressant medications go unpublished because the FDA doesn't have the power, they say. They don't have the power to make sure that all clinical studies on medications go published so that the public can have access to that peer-reviewed medical literature. Well, it only becomes peer-reviewed once it's published. So if the let's say GlaxoSmithKline, makers of Prozac, makers of Paxil, Merck, whoever, if they get a clinical study going, they have it study designed out, and they start watching the patients, oh, we're not having positive effects. In fact, we're seeing harm, such as in children, when they hid the fact that children were committing suicide. 16 times more risk of suicide in children when given these medications. They withheld that evidence for years, allowing children to commit suicide and die. Parents losing their children because their children were depressed or going through situations. The doctors prescribed them medication based on falsified data and lies by the pharmaceutical industry, and these children lost their lives because of it. That's horrible. So when you think about 40% of these clinical studies, we don't even have access. I don't have access to it. But when you look at that data, there's a significant amount of data that shows harms. There's a significant amount of data that shows that they're ineffective. And all they have to do is say, you know what, let's tweak the study a little bit and let's redo it. And they just keep redoing it, and redoing it until they get the positive effect they needed so that they can go to the FDA and they can say, look, our drug was 2% more effective than a placebo, therefore we need to have the drug. And what's crazy about this article is they even discuss the fact that there are side effects, and patients will be informed of the side effects, such as sexual dysfunction and other digestive system issues. So they'll have these side effects from the medication. They're informed of the possible side effects to inform their physician. And then they learn they're on the medication because of the side effects, and then that has an additional placebo effect by saying the patient would then say, well, I'm getting the side effects, so they told me the side effects would come from the medication and not the placebo. So now that I'm getting the side effects, that must mean I'm on the drug, so therefore I must be truly being treated. I'm not just on the placebo. So then they get an additional placebo effect because they're suffering. Crazy. And that's why it gives it a slight more benefit. Now, there is a huge positive that can be taken away from that, because a lot of times when you explain that to somebody who's taking these medications and they have their life changed upon taking that medication, they feel, well, it worked. It did me some good. I'm sleeping better. Maybe Darlene's sleeping better. It's helping her with her anxiety through the day. Well, if a placebo could work just effectively, it shows you the power of your mind, the power of the mindset to change things. So there's a huge power that you have potential to harness just by changing your mindset. And the placebo effect is nothing to shake a stick at. It's a powerful effect. The power of the mind is more powerful than anything. The power of the tongue is even more powerful. If you can speak positive things in your life and joy in your life, there's amazing things that can come about from that. So Darlene, first thing in the morning, what I want you to do is I want you to wake up and I want you to start thinking about, take some time to yourself, maybe before your baby's up. And I know that's tough because, I'll tell you what, Magnolia is our wake up, like our alarm clock, like our little baby that's 9 months old now. that's like, I mean, my wife was like praising Jesus. Magnolia slept till 4 a.m., through the night, didn't have the nurse all night. Anna woke up thinking it's like 1 o'clock because she's like, this baby never sleeps that long, and then looked at the clock, 4 a.m. She was super excited, got a good night's rest, because baby's still nursing through the night. But, so we had that wake-up call. But, whether it be your spouse, let him take the baby for a little while, spend time for yourself, spend time just focusing, meditating, prayer, going outside, taking a walk, relaxation techniques. When baby's napping, make sure that you take time for yourself. Don't just say, it's nap time for baby. Now I'm going to mop the floor, do the dishes. I'm going to, go do my work. I'm going to get my thing. I've got to do all the work for the family. Take time for yourself every single day to write down or just speak it out loud what you're joyful for, what in your life is bringing you joy. Your baby, of course, just the things that bring you joy. Speak them aloud. Praise whoever you need to praise. Praise Jesus for the life that you have and the health that you have. Focusing on joy really does, it's like, don't just curse the darkness. Bring light, turn on the light, and through that, you can deal with the darkness a lot easier. So, some good things there. I'm going to read through some of these things, and we're going to get some of the other topics here. As more and more scientists who study depression and the drugs that treat it are concluding that suggests that antidepressants are basically expensive Tic Tacs, they say, according to the mountains of evidence. Again, 40% of clinical trials never published. Most are company-sponsored. You've got, in 1980, Moore used the Freedom of Information Act to pry such. So a physician used the Freedom of Information Act to pry open the FDA's, vault. In total, came to 47 company-sponsored studies on Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, Effexor, Celexa, and others. Kirsch and his colleagues then pored over them and found that more than 40% of those clinical trials had never been published. And the FDA said they don't have the power to force drug companies to publish those clinical trials that show negative effects of a drug. That's ridiculous, if you ask me, for our FDA, our Food and Drug Administration, to say that they don't have the power. When a clinical study, if you're actually testing on human beings, it should be 100% mandated that every ounce of information gained from that clinical study, for which you literally use human lives as lab rats, you use them and you experiment on human lives, and you don't have to provide the information that you discovered by testing on these human beings. That is completely wrong. But now you're seeing how the FDA plays their hand in providing the pharmaceutical industry with a way to conceal the fact or conceal the truth. The belief that antidepressants can cure depression chemically is simply wrong. The triumph of marketing over science, they say, this day and age with antidepressants. Simple explanation that the FDA requires two well-designed, this is how the FDA approves a drug. FDA requires two well-designed, quote-unquote well-designed, by the fox guarding the hen house again. Two well-designed clinical trials showing a drug is more effective than a placebo. That's two, period. Even if more studies had been done that showed no such effectiveness, and the size of more effective doesn't matter much as long as it's statistically significant. So what the FDA does is it says, you know what, bring to me your research. And I don't care if you did 10 studies that showed it harmful, as long as you can manipulate the study design enough or the data enough, in which they do that all the time. We just keep trusting liars over and over again, and I don't know why the FDA does it. Well, I actually do, because they're getting handouts, they're getting tons of money from the pharmaceutical industry. So they take the money from the pharmaceutical industry. They get paid when they approve a drug. If they don't approve a drug, they don't get paid. So the FDA incentivized. The pharmaceutical industry literally lobbied to mandate the FDA to change regulations so that the FDA would get paid millions of dollars when they approve a drug. Not just evaluating a drug, but when they approve a drug. So what that did was they bought the FDA off. Because that's when they get their money, when the drug is approved. They can evaluate studies and say it's not approved, they don't get their money then. So they do work for nothing. It's completely wrong the way this system is set up. So they just say, hey, bring me your studies. The pharmaceutical industry brings their studies to them, says, see, my studies said it was effective and safe. Oh, just like Vioxx was? Just like just like all your other medications, just like your vaccines, just like, Avandia, that killed thousands of people with diabetes. It's like, how many times are we going to trust them to bring their own data forward to say, look, I proved that my drug that I'm going to make billions of dollars on was safe and effective. Psychotherapy is more effective than any pill or placebo, so psychotherapy being the most effective. And I understand that sometimes psychotherapy can just be sitting down over a cup of coffee with a friend, a loved one. That is a powerful psychotherapy, just talking through situations, having people to depend on. All right, think twice how the gut's second brain influences mood and well-being. We're going to talk about that here in a second. I want to look over some of our questions or comments here online really quickly, if we have any. Ruth says, I take lorazepam and ibuprofen taken for 5 years. My wish is to get off of them. I have a panic disorder and depression. I've been indifferent. It's horrible, but better than 24/7 panic attacks. I could understand that, Ruth. Ruth, you can do it. You can achieve it. I've got one of the studies that I have here on my computer. I want to make sure. Again, thewilddoc.com, the website will have the articles, the research references, those things. There's a phenomenal research article. Just so if everybody's tuning in right now and wants to know, one of the best ones I found right now in the peer-reviewed medical literature is medication-free alternatives for long-term maintenance of bipolar disorder, a case series. So a series of cases were evaluated in how they used multifaceted, multi-supplement treatment approaches, dietary changes, supplements, as well as things like yoga, meditation. They use acupuncture, ways to change the nervous system. I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a key. One of the foundations of treating and improving someone's psychological mood is spinal alignment. It's one of the most important things that we can focus on. Some powerful, powerful research that actually shows that immobility or improper mobility of the spine downregulates electrical stimulation to the brain that then alters our mood, puts us in a negative state of mind, even a sympathetic tone, a high stress response due to misalignments. I had a woman, her name was Ellen, and she literally came to me because her ex-husband literally begged and pleaded for her to come in here and begin to get adjusted. She had immobility of her cervical spine, her neck was deteriorating, she had deteriorative disc disease, and her cervical spine that was down-regulating the electrical stimulation to her brain because it wasn't moving as effectively. As soon as we started to adjusting her neck, she literally came in within a couple weeks and says, I am happier than I've ever been. I don't need my medication anymore. Quit her medication on her own. No side effects coming off the medication, no issues at all. Lived drug and medication free from then on out now to this day. So phenomenal. Had another patient here recently coming in and getting adjusted. She literally had a coworker come up to her after less than 2 weeks of treatment getting adjusted. She went from somebody like a Debbie Downer, somebody very negative at work. She came in, started getting adjusted, getting the upper cervical in the right alignment. It's very important. The upper cervical impacts our mood more than anywhere else in the spine. Now, they have shown that degenerative disc disease in the lumbar spine to cause atrophy of the cerebellum, atrophy of the brain, because of lack of movement even in the spinal structure all the way down in the lower back, negatively impacting brain function and mood. So this woman starts getting adjusted. One of her coworkers even walks up to her and says, whatever you're doing, it is so much, it's so much easier working with you right now. You're a pleasure to work with right now. You've been in such a happier mood, whatever you're doing, it's fantastic. Keep doing it. She told this woman about what we were doing in my clinic by getting her spine in the right alignment. And then, of course, the coworker comes in and starts getting adjusted as well. So Elizabeth chime in, trying to help out Ruth. Awesome. Preach on Wild Doc. Appreciate that. Caitlin says, friends, don't let depressed friends take Zoloft. We're going to help Darlene. Meditation is a great tool. Awesome, Melissa. So thank you for all chiming in. Make sure you're asking questions. Think twice how the gut's second brain, okay, the gut is the second brain, influences mood and well-being. The little brain in our innards, that'll be our digestive tract, in connection with the big one in our skull, partly determines our mental state, plays a key role in certain diseases throughout the body. Again, Hippocrates said that disease begins in the gut. He didn't say the gut causes disease. He said the disease begins in the gut, one of the most susceptible areas of your body for disease to begin. He did say, though, look well to the spine for the cause and prevention of all disease. So Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, we're not in the modern age yet. We just got to wait a few more years, hopefully, and then our whole healthcare system will actually adopt what the father of modern medicine said was, look, let food be thy medicine. Now, I say to people all the time, I say, I don't want to ever depend on a medicine, even if it's food. I don't want to have food, the type of foods I eat, ruling my life. All right. So I eat healthy because of what it does for me. It keeps me well, it keeps me healthy, but I'm not dependent on that. I never want to be dependent on any type of quote unquote medicine. Definitely never a drug. I just will never, in my spirit, in my heart, I'll never take a medication except for true emergency situations, such as a car accident, God forbid, puncture wound, something like that, But the reality is, and I'm not talking about the tetanus shot, won't take that puncture wound, just to clarify that. So, but it's just, I see so much wrong going on in the pharmaceutical industry that when they literally will lie about the safety of a medication and sacrifice children's lives for profits, you know what? I don't want to give $1 of my money. So, Darlene, if I could speak to you on this, if I could speak to those out there taking medications, find something alternative, find a way to heal, find a way to get well, and that's what we're going to give you, some tips, some tools to take home, to do for yourself to help your body heal. But this is powerful for me. I'm going to do something else other than a drug. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take care of my body so I never need a medication. And this is part of the reason in my spirit why I do that. Psychiatrist jailed for research fraud. Psychiatrist on the payroll of GlaxoSmithKline pleaded guilty to research fraud. All right, GlaxoSmithKline, manufacturers of Paxil, paid Palazzo, this medical physician, $5,000 for every child she enrolled in the study. The psychiatrist on the payroll of GlaxoSmithKline has been sentenced 13 months in prison after pleading guilty to committing research fraud in trials of companies' antidepressant Paxil in children. Maria Carmen Palazzo is already serving a sentence of 87 months for defrauding Medicare and Medicaid. Now, I want to point this out. So a pharmaceutical industry hires a woman who's already a known felon. She's already known to lie within her medical profession. So she defrauded Medicare and Medicaid. So you know she has a love of money. So she defrauds Medicare and Medicaid. She's a known felon. I don't know how she even has her license and practicing anymore. She's serving 87 months in prison for that. GlaxoSmithKline sought her out, hires her to do a research study in children because they knew she would lie. That's my opinion on that. Why would they hire a known felon? Why would they hire someone? If they want to have immaculate, they don't want corrupt people. They don't want people that just love money. They want people that want the best for their patients and people out there taking their medications. They wouldn't be hiring this woman. No, they hired the woman because they knew she would lie. So she got 13 months in jail for literally, in my opinion, killing children because she attempted to hide and conceal the fact that children were committing suicide when placed on this medication. And that's compared to children not taking the medication with depression. So Palazzo was accused of the FDA by enrolling children in the clinical trial, even though she knew they did not actually suffer from major depressive disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, and conditions being studied. Palazzo then falsified records in psychiatric diagnosis. She wanted people that weren't clinically depressed, they put them on the medication, they wouldn't have severe negative side effects. Glaxo is now defending itself against charges that for 15 years it deliberately concealed evidence that Paxil increased the risk of suicide in children. For 15 years. Now tell me, who out there on here watching this right now, who in their right mind would want to give a dime or cent to a company that would falsify data, that would lie about the risk of children losing their lives? More children losing their lives. That's murder in my opinion. So they murdered children for profit. Who in their right mind would want to give a dime or cent of their money to this organization or this company right there? I mean, if somebody in your town was doing something horrific to young children, destroying their lives, killing them, in fact, I mean, would you go and buy a product from them if they made hats? Like, I love this hat. I love this leather hat. It's a really cool leather hat. Now, if somebody made this leather hat And that's the only person in the world making these leather hats, but I found out that they murdered children for money, I would be like, you know what? You can keep your leather hat. I don't want to give a dime % of my money to you. That's the way I function personally. So I'm hoping people will see this. The company has already agreed to pay more than $1 billion to settle roughly a 700 birth defect lawsuit. Another 100 or so lawsuits pending. FDA eventually required Paxil to carry a black box warning. So the FDA doesn't say, oh, so your drug now, the research shows your drug is killing more children if we put them on the drug if they have depression than if we never put the children on the drug. Let's just put a black box on it. That'll be a good idea. So it's more dangerous, it's more harmful. Yeah, let's just put a black box on it, and that'll just tell parents that they shouldn't take it. Meanwhile, the doctors say, oh, pay no attention to that. It's very important that we put them on this medication so that depression's very dangerous. And it is. I'm not kidding you here. Depression is very harmful. By itself can be very dangerous. We need to give alternative ways to heal and recover. So, heal the gut. You've got to get that. You've got to lower. So, Grain Brain. Okay, great book. Just realizing that gluten inflammation, or maybe it wasn't the gluten, it was the glyphosate in there, you guys, the chemicals we put on our foods right now, especially genetically modified foods, negatively impact the neurotransmitters in the digestive tract, which is the second brain, has more neurotransmitters and more nerves than even our central nervous system, folks. The second brain contains over 1 million neurons, more than either the spinal cord or the peripheral nervous system. So it's important for your neurological state to take care of your gut. Scientists were shocked to learn that about 90% of the fibers in the primary visceral nerve, that would be the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is Vegas wanderer. I guess you wander and then you end up in Vegas, or you go to Vegas and then you end up wandering around Vegas. I don't know. So I don't know how they ended up. Vagus nerve was probably before Nevada, Vegas was ever built. I don't know. Carry information from the gut to the brain, and not the other way around. So it's more about the communication from the gut to the brain than it is from the brain to the gut. But that communication pathway is very, very important, and I want people to pay attention to the fact that they're talking about how important the vagus nerve transmission from brain to gut to brain is important for both digestive tract health as well as mental state and mental health. Not the other. Some of the info is decidedly unpleasant. GI turmoil can sour one's mood. Everyday emotional well-being may rely on the messages from the brain to the brain and above. Electrical stimulation of the vagus nerve, a useful treatment for depression. So what they do is they do electrical. They literally have this device where you literally press it up near your artery here in your neck, and you stimulate the vagus nerve. So it's vagal nerve stimulation. They're using an electrical device to upregulate the neurological community, electrical stimulation through the vagus nerve. And by doing that, they improve mood. Now, it's a slight improvement. I've got another electrical brain stimulation may help fibromyalgia as well as depression patients in this next article that I'll discuss. But why is your vagus nerve not transmitting the proper signals? All right, so if your gut is inflamed, you're going to transmit a lot of negative neurofeedback to the brain, which is going to negatively impact your mood. But by stimulating the vagus nerve, it downregulates inflammation. So the brain to body, the brain to gut communication, the proper nerve stimulation, the proper nerve pathway needs to be opened up through the vagus nerve to provide the ability of the body to regulate inflammation. The parasympathetic nervous system is primarily the vagus nerve regulates neuroinflammation, one of the most powerful ways to downregulate inflammation in the body. So I'll see patients with psychiatric conditions. I'll see children with autism on the spectrum. And we begin to adjust them. One of the biggest things that parents come back and tell me is that their children has less aggressive tendencies. They're not as forceful, they're not as fighting, they're not as frantic. They talk about how they can ride in the car easier without freaking out. So what we're doing there is by adjusting the spine, opening up the brain to body, the brain to gut pathway, and stimulating the vagus nerve through specific adjustments to the upper cervical spine, which your atlas, your C2, and your skull will impact the vagal nerve tone more than any other type of adjustment. So adjusting the upper cervical is very, very important. So if you're not living in the region where I practice, you know what, seek out an upper cervical specific chiropractor, one subluxation based, that is going to be very, very specific with their adjustments, not general mobilization alone. Though beneficial, general mobilization is phenomenal in and of itself, but being very, very specific oftentimes will have greater benefits for neurological conditions. I've seen patients on depression medications able to remove the need, able to heal, able to get off the depression medications by coming to my clinic when previous chiropractic care of a general nature was not as effective and didn't enhance their mood. So it relieved their pain but didn't enhance the mood. So 95% of the body's serotonin is found in the bowels, provoke GI issues and a side effect of certain medications such as SSRIs. Irritable bowel syndrome, which afflicts more than 2 million Americans, also arises in part from too much serotonin in our entrails and could, or that would be their digestive tract, and could perhaps be regarded as a mental illness of the second brain. How do you know your gut is inflamed? So Ruth, there's CRP tests, there are certain functional medicine blood tests that can show CRP. Sensitive CRP shows your body to be inflamed, and that's a marker. Most individuals with severe depression are going to have a high markers of CRP, high C-reactive protein. And I know whether your gut is inflamed, you don't always have to have symptoms of that, but I would always encourage a plant-based, non or low allergenic or elimination diet in the process of figuring out whether you're allergic to things. And you may not have any symptoms, so you can't always tell whether your gut is inflamed just by that. But one of the best things is just changing the diet, eliminating dairy, which is, so when you look at the most, like across the board, I'll have people that go to functional medicine doctors, get the blood work, do the stool samples, and they come back and they say, okay, so you're allergic to gluten, you're allergic to dairy, and you're allergic to eggs. So right there, it's like everybody is. Well, one, there's a lot of vaccines that are grown on egg protein, especially our flu vaccines. We use bovine protein. Again, the NIH states that we are sensitized against bovine protein by injection of that protein through childhood vaccines. So we sensitize. If we take peanut oil in the vitamin K shot and other shots and vaccines, you inject that. Now you become sensitized against that protein because that protein should have been ingested, then digested, then the amino acids of the protein should have been absorbed individually, not the whole protein. So leaky gut, antibiotics increase leaky gut. You can become sensitized because your gut cannot fully digest. The gut barrier breaks down, becomes more porous. The whole proteins get into the bloodstream. Your body has to mount an immune response because it's not fully broken down. And injection is the same way. You can become allergic to deer meat or red meat, in fact, if you're bit by a tick, because the tick can accidentally inject. If it bit a deer, red meat, and injects the blood of that deer and the meat of the deer into you, you can become, God forbid that ever happens to me because I love my deer steak. So, and I get ticks all the time, all over the place, but I always have my wife check for them. There's a song about that, isn't there? The country western song, check, I want to check you for ticks or something. All right, so, where were we? Squirrel! There he goes. There he goes again. All right. Melissa says still love. You mean still alive? Love it. All right. So, go through a nature medicine. Drug that inhibited the release of serotonin from the gut counteracted the bone deterioration diseases of osteoporosis, postmenopausal rodents. Scientific American, part of Nature Publishing Group. It was totally unexpected that the gut would regulate bone mass to the extent that one could use this regulation to cure osteoporosis. Interesting stuff here. Perhaps, let's go on to the next one. Electrical brain stimulation. So electrical brain stimulation might help fibromyalgia patients. Magnetic brain stimulation, transcranial magnetic stimulation. This improvement in associated increased brain metabolism, which argues for a physical cause for the disorder of fibromyalgia, for possibly changes in the area of the brain to improve symptoms. Previous studies in patients with fibromyalgia have suggested an alteration of the brain areas involved in both regulation of pain and emotion. This is a journal of Neurology, and this article right here talks about how they would actually stimulate the nape of the neck, doing electrical stimulation to the base of the skull. And through that process, again, that's important because it's vagal nerve stimulation. So improper alignment of the upper cervical spine. You have more mechanoreceptors for mechanical movement in your upper cervical spine than anywhere else in your body. 240 mechanoreceptors per gram of tissue roughly in the upper cervical spine. And it's important that your spine moves properly, not moves improperly or aberrantly, or it's twisted out of alignment, causing spasming, tightening of the suboccipital muscles. So we had Ruth online, Darlene online. Literally, if you feel the back of your neck and the base of the skull is tight and tender on one side or the other, you have misalignments, and you got to get those fixed. Across the board, people, if they have tenderness at the base of the skull, the upper cervical spine, if that's tender, get it evaluated by an upper cervical chiropractor that does structural correction otherwise, and get that fixed, because that can negatively impact your emotions, that can negatively impact your health, it can cause high blood pressure, migraine headaches, and other things. Now, fibromyalgia and depression, we're talking about specifically. The impact here, the next study, the Journal of Spine, from the year 2002, the impact of functional restoration. So this is going to help somebody that's actually looking at possibly doing a cervical fusion. That would be where they go in and implant screws and plates in your spine, or doing bone fragments to fuse your spine and stop it from moving, which has horrible results. 70% of the time, initially, patients are worse off immediately. 70% of the time, worse off immediately. Great odds there. 90% of the time, they're worse off at the 5-year mark. So impact of functional restoration in patients with chronic disabling work-related neck pain. So, workers' compensation patients with chronic disabling work-related cervical spinal disorders who undergo the fusion surgery combined with functional restoration, so things like PT, have socioeconomic outcomes. This is what's comical. Like, if you read the research, it's quite comical. Listen to this. They have socioeconomic outcomes after their surgery were similar to those of unoperated controls. The same spinal disorders. Let's do surgery to one group, no surgery to the other group, and let's watch what happens. They were similar. So why do the $100,000 surgery then? Now listen to this. Surgery patients had a higher rate of additional healthcare seeking behaviors from new providers and a greater likelihood of being clinically depressed before and after rehabilitation. The study suggests that cervical fusion is not contraindicated. Wait, what? You just said patients, they have similar results initially, and then they have more healthcare seeking behaviors, meaning they need more medical physicians, so they have more problems, and they have a greater likelihood of being clinically depressed. And then your opinion is it's not contraindicated. So just keep doing the surgery. So you actually made people worse. You downplayed the results. You didn't say stop doing the surgeries except for extreme cases. You made people depressed. You ruined their relationships. You ruined their lives by that spinal surgery. What's the important lesson to learn from that right there is the fact that improper mechanical motion of the upper cervical spine, especially the neck, is critical for proper mood regulation and pain regulation. So I'm going to skip over the study, but it will be online. Depression and anxiety, a major determinants of neck pain. So neck pain, the higher the neck pain, the greater the misalignment, the greater the deteriorative function of the cervical spine, the greater likelihood of having severe anxiety and depression. And several case studies, many studies online with chiropractic care, very specific chiropractic care, correcting that neurological imbalance and getting people out of depression. So Leslie, I think Reiki can help too. Depression naturally. Where can I try Reiki? Darling, just as good as emotional freedom technique. Tapping is very, very great too. Acupressure, yes. Certain acupuncture points, like right here, in the web of your thumb and index finger, you can press. So Ruth says, I will be going to a chiropractor soon. Excellent, Ruth. Great to hear that. What do I tell them? Do they all know how to treat depression? So a chiropractor would never say that I treat depression. I treat a person. Ruth, if you were coming to me, I would be treating you as a friend, a patient, someone that deserves a better health, better life. So that's the difference between, I believe, even a good chiropractor and the general run-of-the-mill chiropractor. They should be treating you. They should be treating your spine. They should be treating the misalignments. They should be helping you and assisting you in your life and changing your life. So getting you healthy is the goal. And through better health, better function of the spine, that is going to enable you to regulate your mood, downregulate inflammation in the body, downregulate neuroinflammation, brain inflammation through proper alignment of the spine too. So if you're going to the chiropractor, what I would say is, number one, ask if they treat subluxation and misalignments of the spine. If they don't treat subluxation, they say, I don't believe in that, I wouldn't stay there. Then ask it, do you function on a neurological, do you treat for a neurological improvement, or do you treat simply to treat pain? If they're more a pain-based clinic, there's a benefit to those chiropractors and those practices, but when it comes down to it, you need a neurologically based chiropractor. I do heart rate variability studies. There's also other Insight Millennium that does neuro evaluations with thermal scans up and down the spine. If they do those things, a lot of times they're more neurologically based. Again, upper cervical specific, if they're just your rack 'em and crack 'em and on your way, though there's benefits to that movement, and I don't want to say negative things about my profession or other chiropractors, but there's tricks of the trade, there's different techniques within chiropractic care, and what I've found is being very, very specific. I use instrument adjustments for the upper cervical spine as well as manual adjustments. I'll start out a lot of times with manual adjustments and transition over to more instrument adjustments. And in that process, I see better results with things like migraine, headaches, depression. I see improvements in blood sugar, blood pressure being able to be coming down. But I don't treat any one of those diagnoses. I don't treat a diagnosis, I treat the individual. So I know it's kind of semantics, but I'm not claiming that chiropractic can cure depression, because the FDA has never evaluated it. And they won't, because there's no way chiropractors could pool all our money together and afford and get a return on our investment if we were to do all the studies and then do FDA approval. The FDA says the only thing that can cure and treat a condition is a synthetic man-made chemical, and you have to know the one ingredient. So when you look at like depression and fruit treatment, yeah, fruit. Like seriously. These include plantains, pineapples, bananas, kiwis, plums, tomatoes for serotonin, white and black mustard, wolfberry. I don't even know what wolfberry is, but I'm definitely going to figure that out. And fenugreek seeds for melatonin, cottage cheese, soy protein. Now, not isolated soy protein, but organic, non-GMO soy. And especially fermented soy can be healthy. Peanuts, if you're not allergic, but legumes. Legumes such as cashews are phenomenal for addiction and depression. Beans, phenomenal food is a bean. Beans, the more you eat, the more you toot. Beans, musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. I love singing that song with my grandpa. All right. So other things, wheat flour. Again, you've got to have a non-GMO, non-sprayed wheat if you're going to do that. Potatoes and other foods for tryptophan. It seems that using such foods in a daily diet of depressed patients not only could treat the disease, but may improve the prognosis of dementia and decrease violent suicidal attempts. Folks, listen to this. Medications bring on serious side effects such as sexual dysfunction. So that was one of my patients when I worked out in a clinic in Colorado. Helping her get off those medications changed the relationship with her spouse. Because by taking the antidepressive medications, though she's like, it does help with some of my symptoms, it gives her that indifference. She's kind of on the even keel, not the highs and not the severe lows. That indifference and the sexual dysfunction was ruining her marriage. So by getting her adjusted, we increased the neurological communication, we changed her nutrition, she got off those medications, and was able to get a physical relationship restored with her husband that was having a detrimental effect on their marriage. Now, some cool studies here I wanted to mention. I'm going to be, there will be an article out this week. We're finalizing the information in that article. It will be on thewilddoc.com. It's about Passionflower. Passionflower, using the twigs, the actual vine, it's a vine, not a twig like you would think a tree. But the vine, the leaves, the flower, all known to have antidepressive benefits. Another one is I have an article coming out here very, very soon on the anti-anxiety effects, more about the pain relief effects, because that's what I wanted to focus on in this article about pain relieving lettuce or opioid lettuce. But it helps. It makes, if I eat that, I become very tired. It would help you sleep at night and reduces anxiety. That's what it's been found to do. So pain relieving lettuce. And what I'm going to be doing in the future is I'm going to show you how to go out in the woods and make a antidepressant tincture, how to harvest, identify, utilize wild remedies such as Passionflower to be able to assist yourself in healing and reducing the effects of anxiety or depression. Safflower, though. Safflower is another one with the clinical study. The results just as effective as Paxil. Listen to this. This study right here, they did a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial and did a crossover trial comparing the benefits of saffron with Paxil. And guess what? Just as effective, folks. Just as effective. Saffron, without suicidal ideation in the saffron and without sexual dysfunction. No one taking saffron had sexual dysfunction, folks. So right there, powerful, powerful natural remedy. So forget the Paxil, get on saffron if you wanted to, according to the peer-reviewed medical literature. Elizabeth says, ticks are terrifying. I have Lyme's disease, and it's full of biowarfare. I'm not well. So Elizabeth points out something here that we're going to go into more detail on in just a minute. Now, I know that for my regular scheduled program here on local television, we're going to be wrapping up here in just a couple minutes. So again, if you live local to Clarksville, Tennessee, north of Nashville, you can join us in our clinic. You can get well, you can get healthy here. We're here to help you with your health goals. We want to share the truth with you. That's what I do on a daily basis with my patients, is giving them natural tools to liberate themselves from the dependency of medications. So that'll be, just remember, this is where we'll wrap up the video for television. Sweet Anthony. Because I'm going to go into some hardcore stuff. I mean, if you wanted to throw this one in there, we could. But here we go, folks. Here's some interesting news, because you know me. I talk about this all the time. I was on the phone today with a fellow, is a spouse of a chiropractor, with family members, and I guess there's a divorce going on, and husband and wife are battling over whether they're going to vaccinate their child. This child has never been vaccinated. The court is wanting, and the father is wanting to fully vaccinate, catch the child up. Can be very, very dangerous, if not deadly, to do that with these vaccines. They have major traumatic effects and neurological effects, traumas to the child that can take place, especially in combined multi-doses. Can be very, very dangerous in terms of neuroinflammation. Now watch this. So, Darlene, I wanted to mention here, I have one study. Maternal exposure to antidepressant SSRIs linked to autism in children. Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics. Average age of first diagnosis 4 to 6.6 years of age. When taking into account maternal depression as a factor, translating into no association to antidepressants, but the antidepressants could cause, I mean, think about that. You're taking a drug that alters serotonin chemicals in the brain and causes the frontal lobe body. That's how you become indifferent. 87% increased risk when used in the second or third trimester. Now, if someone is depressed, they have a higher likelihood that they have significant neuroinflammation or inflammation in the body, and that alone, inflammation in the body, has been tied to an increased risk or rate of autism or neuropsychiatric conditions in children. So it's not just vaccines, but just wait till you see what we have next. Scientists believe that the capacity of the brain to synthesize serotonin develops atypically in children with autism due to the fact that antidepressants likely to remain widely used in the future. A better understanding of the long-term neurodevelopmental effects of antidepressants on children used during gestation is a public health priority. It's like, no, we saw negative effects of the drug. Why don't we tell them to get off of it? And why don't we find them that a plant-based nutritional diet, eating fruit, was as effective as an antidepressant without side effect? Doctors have long been mixed feelings with prescribing antidepressants in pregnant women. Previous studies have shown increased risk of spontaneous abortion, prematurity, and other physical issues in children, especially those on Paxil with birth defects. So she was asking about whether it would be safe to give it. So Darlene, I'm not trying to scare you, but I do want you to seek out a natural means to correct or heal from this depression, to get well. Using Passionflower tea, using, it doesn't have opioid in it, okay, but it's opium lettuce. It's kind of the nickname for it because it had more potent effect than opioids. It was actually without side effect, without harm, without dependency. So it wasn't a drug dependency. We have many babies being born in the United States, especially Tennessee, addicted to opioids. And that's just horrifying, terrifying to see children going through withdrawal as soon as they're born. So, but we need to realize there are safer, more effective ways, and there is a way to heal and get off of antidepressants. So please, 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 and make sure that you have the support of your spouse. Make sure that you're doing things. You have a support group around you when you are, if you were to ever choose to come off of medications. Again, I'm not telling you to come off of your medications, but I am telling you that there are safer alternatives, that there's safer ways, that there's ways to heal, there's ways to become healthy. And if you so choose, I would applaud you in conquering, a thing like depression. So antibody response following hepatitis B vaccination in dialysis patients. Does depression and quality of life matter? Does life quality matter? So Elizabeth tuned in, said bio-warfare, Lyme's disease, yes. Chronic fatigue, depression, underlying viral infections. Underlying infections can be a cause of that because they're going to chronically stimulate the immune response, and the immune system never gets to rest. So you're chronically generating inflammation, trying to fight off this infection, and that alone can cause neuroinflammation, inflammation of the brain. So Lyme's disease can cause that, but Lyme's disease is still not the root. Healing from it, getting rid of the root, those infections, can allow somebody to heal. But there are people infected with Lyme, and they're able to fight it off no problem. No big deal. So you have to see it's a susceptibility. It's how well your body's adapting. So I've got patients that have come into me with chronic Lyme's disease, and we simply begin to adjust them. And through better adaptation of their nervous system and enhancement in their immune response, and I think I talked about that on one of my short videos last Thursday about HIV Vaccine Awareness Day and the benefits of chiropractic adjustments, specific chiropractic adjustments, again, to that upper cervical spine that improved the immune response so well that there was a 48% increase in CD4 cell counts. Phenomenal improvement in the strength of the immune system. And that's what's going to determine whether you get chronic Lyme's disease or you're able to fight off the Lyme, and no big deal. Now, what's interesting to me is they're doing hypothermia, another natural treatment. So it's summer right now. Just turn off your AC and sweat it out. Literally hyperthermia. So higher. So raising your core body temperature, sometimes up to 105, while still making sure that you're well hydrated. But doing that enhances the immune response, and it's one of the most effective ways to combat Lyme's disease. It's free. You can literally, like the Indians, the Native Americans used to do, they used to have these sweat houses, all right? So they literally make these mud domes, stick and mud domes, pipe in hot air from a fire outside there and sweat it out. It was a cleansing. It was cleansing to them. So they'd sweat it out. They'd increase their core body temperature. So I always wonder, I wonder if they did that partly for cleansing. Maybe they knew or maybe they didn't know that people with chronic, because they're running around with loincloth on practically, Native Americans, they're constantly being exposed to ticks. I guarantee they are getting tick bites all the time. So they had to have been exposed to Lyme's disease. So what were they doing on a yearly basis? They do these cleansing techniques, and they've shown that hyperthermia, raising the core body temperature, not only helps with viral and different infections, but also with things like cancer. So phenomenal stuff you can do there on your own for free. Oh, I would love that. Just taking plants that help anxiety. I hope so, darling. Give it a try. I'm definitely looking for more natural meds for my anxiety. Joy tunes in there. And Joy, Love seeing you on here. Miss you, girl. Hope you're well. Antibody response, again, to the hepatitis B vaccine, and guess what it caused? Depression, because of an immune dysregulation caused by the hepatitis B vaccine. Caused depression. Illness, cytokines, depression, vaccination of teenage girls with live attenuated rubella virus. Oh, wait, MMR vaccine? The rubella study, we demonstrated that, compared to control subjects and their own baseline, a subgroup of vulnerable individuals, girls from low socioeconomic status, showed a significant virus-induced increase in depression. Not but viruses can, but a vaccine-induced depressed mood for long periods of time, up to 10 weeks in this study. So if you have repetitive, vaccine over vaccine, you look at Dr. Russell Blaylock has a lot of information on that subject right there, and that vaccines increase neuroinflammation and stimulate the immune responses within the central nervous system, especially when they have things like polysorbate 80 that breaks down and makes the blood-brain barrier permeable. Then you look at the vaccine adjuvants, such as aluminum and other vaccine adjuvants, that are artificially stimulating the inflammatory autoimmune type response. And you look at autoimmune diseases, a lot of those individuals suffer with depression because they're having that autoimmune type response, high inflammation within the body, and especially the central nervous system. So vaccines induce that. Inflamed moods, a review of the interaction between inflammation and mood disorders. Within this study in humans, an inflammatory response has been stimulated using vaccinations to literally cause depression. One study in 2005 had similar results with vaccinating healthy individuals with salmonella. So they vaccinated healthy volunteers with salmonella. The vaccine increased tumor necrosis factor and other things and decreased their mood, thus causing depression. Without febrile response or any signs of physical sickness, but causing depression. The effects of vaccination has been shown by others in other studies as well. Acute inflammation, negative mood, mediation by cytokines activation. Another study here, mood was more negative following injection with a vaccine than a placebo. So vaccines. So if you think about this, the United States right now is the most depressed country in the world. We vaccinate more than any other country in the world. Coincidence? Again, vaccines are the biggest cause of coincidence ever. Oh, it was just a coincidence that your child went into seizures and febrile convulsions, and all of a sudden was screaming, irate, unconsolable, wouldn't nurse, and now they will no longer speak again. They won't. Just a coincidence. It wasn't the vaccine. It was too soon or it was too late. It was too long, but this can take a long time. What they've shown in these studies that it can take weeks before the depressive symptoms and the problems, the side effects of these vaccines. So many people would never tie 2 and 2 together and notice that their HPV vaccine they gave to their 12-year-old child, or a teenager took the HPV vaccine and now suffers chronic fatigue and depression, is caused by the childhood vaccinations of that vaccine. So you guys got to see this. We've got to wake up to the fact that the pharmaceutical, the vaccine industry, they make money on sick people. They make money on sick people. Would you put it past them if they're willing to, again, if you watch the entire show, when I talked about GlaxoSmithKline and the researchers committing fraud, hiding the fact that children had a serious increased rate of suicide, literally killing children for profits. That's what they're doing. That's what's going on. You think you'd put it past them to say, you know what? Let's add a little bit of aluminum, a little bit more aluminum to that vaccine. If we can get more people to take this vaccine, we can get more depressed patients. And depression is one of the most profitable businesses in the United States. That drug right there, again, one of the top. If you look at all the psychotropic medications, it's the #1 class of medications sold to Americans. Unacceptable. We need to get people well. Pay attention to the Wild Doc. If you haven't got online there, subscribe, please. You'll get the emails for updates, videos, different content to help you in just revolutionizing, liberating yourself from the need to take a medication. My goal is to show people in this world that there is a safer and more effective way of treating almost every single condition known to man. You know what? The good Lord's provided us with everything we need. We just need to know how to identify it and utilize it. We need to understand the value and importance of a correct alignment of our spine, the balance between our nervous system dependent on the spinal structure and the proper mobility of our spine. We talked about that. If we can do these things, the foundations of your health is spinal alignment, proper neurological supply, and your nutrition. A plant-based nutritious diet is phenomenal. Just go to 90 to 95% plant-based, raw fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. You know what? I pick berries on a daily basis with my little boy Amos. Every single morning, he wants to go get them raspberries. He calls them strawberries because everything that's red, I guess, is a strawberry now. So we go out there, we pick these raspberries. I can't wait for our blueberries to be ripe. They're obviously non-GMO. They don't genetically modified berry bushes yet, but we don't spray them, of course. Now the dogs there occasionally will spray them, lift their leg and they spray them, so we just got sprayed down with a hose. But then I got fluoride on them because it's city water. Gosh dang, can't get away from it. Oh yeah, fluoride actually causes atrophy of certain areas of your brain. But if you take turmeric prevents the damage from fluoride. So make sure you're incorporating turmeric on a regular basis. And that's another thing. Turmeric has been shown to improve things like Alzheimer's, depression, dementia. So turmeric is another way to downregulate inflammation in the body. Micah, actually, 5-HTP does wonders here. That's one of my supplements in my full-on depression protocol is 5-HTP. Micah, definitely. Thanks for throwing that tip out there. So if you have any other questions, we're going to wrap things up this evening. Again, understand that health comes from within, not from without. We don't need to be dependent on anything. We need to learn and understand what causes the health condition in the first place. Identify those. Start with the foundations. Get your spine corrected. Get your nutrition right. And from there, start utilizing natural wilderness remedies, things in nature that can help and assist the body, the superfoods, the things that are here on this planet for a reason. We just need to know what to do with them. Again, look for the Passionflower. We'll have a tea recipe on there. It's pretty darn simple. You just dehydrate the leaves and the stem and the vine and the flowers and throw it in some hot water and you got a tea and you drink it on a regular basis. You make tinctures out of it. You can also make capsules if you needed to. And again, I just been picking all the weeds, quote unquote, opioid lettuce, opium lettuce, wild lettuce, and utilizing that. You can utilize it as a sleep aid or anti-anxiety. So hopefully, Darlene, try that. I would bet if you were to try Passionflower and the opium lettuce, which doesn't contain opium, you can't get addicted, can actually relieve pain, but also help with anxiety and sleep. Since those were the two things you needed help with the most, try those two wilderness remedies, and I hope that helps. And please, Darlene, message me, let me know if those things have been able to benefit you. Again, I am blessed to share information with you that hopefully will benefit your lives, help you live a healthier life. Make sure that you share it because that's the only way we're going to save lives. So stay tuned for next Tuesday. Look forward to it. Again, message me on Facebook if you want any specific questions to be answered. I'll tell you right now, Darlene had also saying that the AJ Plus or something's got some measles video. Even my sister said it was just ridiculous how they were just bashing the quote-unquote anti-vaxxers, and I laugh at it. So I'm in the preparation stages of coming back with one of the best. I've got two things that I'm going to do rebuttals on, and stay tuned for the future rebuttals. I'm going to be doing this on a regular basis. When mainstream medical media, that's what I call it nowadays, because it seems like the majority of profits for our mainstream media is coming from the pharmaceutical industry, so they own them too. So you can see that they're promoting these things, but this video, it's just like you literally used a research study from a fugitive, an OIG fugitive, to say that we need to vaccinate for measles, and the anti-vaxxers are all about. So stay tuned to that one. You'll love it. It's going to be good. All right, take care, everyone. Hey, everybody, I'm the Wild Doc, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hop on over to thewilddoc.com. Subscribe there for our newsletter and email campaign. Join in the conversation on Facebook, and let's transform the world by unleashing the power of natural healing.